Okay, let's unpack this. Seriously, what if the deepest understanding of human psychology wasn't just about connection, but, well, also about control?
Right.
What if, that kind of profound insight was presented not as a guide for empathy, maybe, but more like a blueprint for manipulation?
Hmm.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into something truly compelling and, frankly, quite unsettling. It's what the source material calls the dangerous art of psychological seduction, using Robert Greene's laws.
Yeah, it's potent stuff.
It really is. Our insights today are drawn directly from this document titled Seduced with Precision. And it doesn't pull any punches. There's a critical warning right up front.
What does it say?
It says, because once you understand how people are seduced, you'll also understand how they are destroyed.
Wow. Okay. That sets a tone.
It really does. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? So this deep dive, it's crafted specifically for you, listening, to give you that critical knowledge quickly, but also thoroughly. We want to help you unpack these really complex ideas, understand their profound implications.
And what's fascinating, I think, is how this material immediately positions knowledge itself. It calls it a psychological scalpel.
A scalpel. Okay.
It's not presented as neutral information at all. It's framed right away as a tool, a tool of immense power and often, frankly, for detrimental purposes.
Definitely.
And that perspective, it immediately prompts us, and hopefully you too, to consider the really deep implications of understanding these human vulnerabilities. What does it mean to know this?
So what's our role here, then, in this deep dive?
Well, our mission, as I see it, is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge from this complex and, potentially unsettling source. We want to make sure you are well informed about these powerful psychological dynamics.
But not to use them.
Absolutely not. Not to advocate for their use, but to understand them. Because this information, it reveals how profound power can be gained over others, but maybe even more importantly, how people can be made incredibly vulnerable. It's that duality.
That idea of knowledge as a scalpel, it's really striking. So, okay, how does this precision actually begin? Where does this document suggest one starts to understand someone at that fundamental, almost a manipulative level?
It jumps right in.
It does. It launches straight into what it calls Part 1, Mastering Emotional Pattern Recognition. And this principle, which the document explicitly connects to Robert Greene's insights on human nature, specifically the law of compulsive behavior, well, it starts with a pretty stark observation.
Oh, shiz.
People never do something just once. They repeat behavior because they are driven by inner compulsions.
We've all seen that, haven't we?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That friend who keeps falling into the exact same relationship patterns again and again, or the colleague who always reacts the same way under pressure.
Yeah, predictability.
Exactly. The core idea here, according to this source, is that people are not nearly as unique or unpredictable as they often believe themselves to be. In fact, it argues, they're often slaves to patterns, just repeating the same emotional loops, the same insecurities, over and over, and often without even realizing it.
Precisely. And this isn't just some vague observation, right? It taps into deep psychological principles, things like, the way our brains seek efficiency. We repeat what's familiar, even if it's actually destructive for us.
Because it's known.
Because it's known, exactly. And the document suggests these repetitive behaviors, they're often the surface signs of deeper things. Unhealed wounds, maybe, or core insecurities that haven't been addressed. It's about recognizing that beneath the surface chatter, there's usually an underlying script, something guiding their emotional responses almost automatically. And the seducer, as this document describes them, simply identifies and, exploits these deeply grooved pathways.
It really hammers that home. And the technique it describes for identifying these patterns, it calls it surgical observation. That sounds almost cold, doesn't it?
Clinical.
It does. Detached.
You become this silent observer, looking deeper than just the words, looking for what it calls the emotional signature of their life. It gives examples for you to consider, like, does she constantly chase validation? Does he always need to be the smartest person in the room? Do they crumble at the slightest hint of rejection? These aren't just quirks, the source explains. These are clear signs of those unhealed emotional wounds we were talking about.
Their Achilles heel, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. It's like their emotional Achilles heel. A vulnerability that, once you spot it, becomes a potential lever.
And then
the seduction technique it describes becomes surprisingly direct. You mirror back to them what they can't see about themselves. You make them feel profoundly understood, seen, in a way maybe they've never experienced before.
Making them feel gotten, totally gotten. And the source warns, with this chilling precision. Once someone feels that you get them better than they get themselves, they are yours.
Wow. Okay, that's heavy. And it immediately raises a critical point, doesn't it? If understanding someone's deep-seated patterns gives you that kind of power, what are the potential abuses?
Exactly. What happens when it's used negatively?
And the document is very clear on this. It delivers a really stark warning right here. It says, this is how cult leaders begin.
Oh, wow.
This is how manipulators wrap hearts around their fingers. Empathy weaponized is one of the most seductive and dangerous tools in human history.
Empathy weaponized. That's a phrase that really sticks with you.
It does. It's a potent reminder that empathy, a quality we normally see as positive connection, kindness can be twisted. It can become something profoundly destructive when it's used with, well, malicious intent. And the source doesn't shy away from detailing exactly how that happens.
And to really drive this point home, the source brings up a historical example, a pretty famous one.
Who are we talking about?
Cleopatra. The document details how she didn't just seduce Julius Caesar with beauty alone. Actually, it points out, by Roman standards of the time, she wasn't even considered conventionally beautiful.
Interesting. So it wasn't about looks primarily.
Not primarily, no. But what she did have, and what this document emphasizes, was psychological precision. It was less about surface charm and much more about calculated insight into his mind.
Exactly. She understood Caesar's core emotional pattern, his deep, driving desire for legacy, his ambition to be seen as, well, almost divine, godlike.
Right, that was his thing.
That was his thing. And Cleopatra then mirrored that back to him, not with obvious flattery, that would have been too crude, but subtly, by aligning herself with the mythos of Isis, the powerful Egyptian goddess.
Okay. So she played into his deepest self-image.
Precisely. When she appeared before him, you know the story, smuggled in a carpet, uninvited, unafraid, wrapped in mystery and this kind of divine symbolism. She wasn't just presenting herself as a woman, she was a symbol, an embodiment of the very divine connection he craved for himself.
So she saw right into his psychological center.
She did,
Yeah.
and played it like a harp, as the source puts it, just plucked the strings she knew would resonate. And later, she did the exact same thing with Mark Antony. She understood his deep-seated need for grand passion, for a mythical romance that mirrored his own self-perception as a kind of living Dionysus, a god of revelry.
And the result?
The devastating result. Two of the most powerful men in the Roman Empire basically unraveled in her hands. She influenced history through this psychological understanding. It's a perfect, if unsettling, illustration of that concept. Weaponized empathy, its destructive potential.
Okay, so if you've identified those patterns and maybe even wielded that kind of weaponized understanding,
Yeah.
what's the next vulnerability this dangerous art targets?
Where does it go next?
Yeah. This brings us to a concept that feels almost more chilling in a way. It's part 2, exploit the lost and aimless. This principle is based on another of Greene's concepts, the law of aimlessness, and it bluntly states, when people lack direction, they follow those who have it.
Simple but powerful.
Very. Think about this. Most people, the source argues pretty strangely, are kind of adrift. Their goals are vague, maybe their identity shifts with every new trend or social pressure. They are essentially emotionally lost.
Lacking that internal compass.
Exactly. And here's the sinister truth according to this material. People who are emotionally lost are the easiest to seduce.
That's a stark claim.
It is, but it speaks to a very real human need, doesn't it? The need for purpose, for direction.
Absolutely. This point highlights a fundamental human vulnerability that the source really digs into. When individuals lack that internal compass you mentioned, they instinctively look outside themselves. They look for external sources for guidance, for meaning.
So the manipulator steps in.
Right. The document describes the seducer's role in this dynamic not as some benevolent leader, but as someone who projects unwavering certainty, walks with deliberate purpose, speaks with compelling vision. They become effectively a lighthouse in their storm.
An emotional compass.
An emotional compass, exactly. Something the lost person feels they desperately need and clings to. And let's be clear, this isn't about healthy inspiration or mentorship. It's about providing a seemingly essential structure that the target feels utterly incapable of finding on their own.
And the goal, as it's laid out so clearly in Seduce with Precision, isn't really about charming or convincing someone in the usual sense. It's about making them need your clarity, your direction, your certainty.
Creating dependence.
Yes, it's about allowing them to feel that only in your presence, their life suddenly has a narrative, a destiny. that their inner chaos finally makes sense. You provide the emotional structure they lack, basically becoming their anchor in what feels like a turbulent world. It's a very calculated strategy to foster that dependence.
Yeah, and the dependence aspect here is, well, it's crucial to understand the depth of it. The warning the source gives here is explicit and profound. It says, once they tie their emotional identity to you, you're no longer just a lover.
What do you become?
You become their god.
Wow, that's
Huh?
intense.
It is. This isn't about fostering healthy interdependent relationships, not at all. It's about cultivating an almost absolute psychological reliance. It's an extremely powerful and frankly dangerous position to hold over another human being.
It really speaks to the potential for complete psychological control.
Completely. Where the seduced individual's sense of self, their identity, becomes entirely intertwined with and dependent on the manipulator.
Yeah.
The implications for their autonomy, their well-being, they're severe and potentially lasting. The document makes it very clear. This is about gaining total control.
So, okay, you've potentially identified patterns, exploited aimlessness, established yourself as this guiding star. What's the next layer of manipulation this framework details? Where does it go from there?
It gets more subtle, perhaps.
Yeah, now let's explore part 3, weaponized mystery and surprise. This draws from another Greene concept, the non-engagement strategy, from 33 Strategies of War. And the core idea is simple, but potentially devastating. Do not engage when they expect it. Surprise is the deadliest seduction.
Counterintuitive, right?
Very counterintuitive. It goes against the usual script of pursuit and availability. For example, the source advises, if they expect you to chase, disappear.
Pull back.
Exactly. If they expect you to confess your love, go cold.
Key at distance.
Right. If they expect you to crumble under pressure, stand tall, unflappable. This isn't just about playing hard to get in a superficial way. It's presented as a deliberate, almost scientific strategy to manipulate their emotional state. Keep them guessing. Keep them off balance.
And the psychological mechanism at play here, as the document explains it, is quite potent. Predictability, the source states flatly, is the death of desire.
Kills the spark.
Kills the spark. Desire, conversely, is born from mystery, from the unknown, from confusion even, and from what it calls the ache of wondering.
The ache of wondering.
Yeah. This strategy is about creating a vacuum, a constant question mark in the target's mind that only you, the seducer, can seem to answer or resolve. It keeps them perpetually seeking, trying to figure you out.
That's fascinating. And the required behavior then, according to the source, is quite specific. Be slightly out of reach. Be just a little confusing. Be one step ahead of their expectations.
Always keeping them guessing.
Always. And the explicit purpose of this is to keep their mind obsessed. It's not about persuasion, the document asserts very clearly. It is about compulsion. You're aiming to create an involuntary emotional response that keeps them fixated on you, almost against their will.
It's less about genuine attraction at this point.
And more about addiction, creating a need to resolve the uncertainty you've manufactured.
But, and this is important, the source itself flags the danger here. It acknowledges the inherent risks, even for the manipulator.
What's the risk?
It states, if you overdo it, you risk being seen as cruel. People might see through it, see the manipulation. If you underdo it, you become boring. Predictable again. The balance between warmth and distance is the edge you walk.
So it's a tightrope.
It's a real tightrope, exactly. Missteps can have severe consequences, potentially revealing the manipulative intent behind all the actions. The document offers a really vivid analogy for this calculated approach.
What's the analogy?
It says, seduce like the sea tide, come in just enough to wet their skin, then vanish back before they drown in certainty.
Wow. Just enough contact to keep them wanting more.
Precisely. It highlights the deeply calculated, almost transient nature of this psychological game. It's designed to keep the target perpetually yearning, perpetually unsure, always seeking more interaction, more resolution.
Okay, that brings us to the final and maybe the most potent strategy this document details. This feels like the culmination.
The end game, perhaps?
Maybe. Part 4. Speak to their core insecurity. It's referred to as the center of gravity strategy. And this is where, as the source puts it quite chillingly, emotional intelligence truly becomes a scalpel.
Oof. That scalpel again.
Yeah, the core instruction is incredibly precise. Find their emotional center, then control it.
And what is this emotional center?
Every person, this material explains, has a center of gravity. It's a source of deep emotional energy, a core vulnerability. This could be, for instance, a deep-seated insecurity about being alone, or a desperate need for approval from others. Maybe an old heartbreak that never truly healed. It's that one raw nerve, that fundamental point of emotional pain or need.
And once this emotional center is identified, this is where the strategy shifts again, right? It becomes quite insidious. The crucial step is not to attack this insecurity.
Oh, quite the opposite.
Exactly. The instruction is to soothe it.
Soothe it.
You make them feel safe, whole, loved, respected, profoundly understood in your presence. You offer relief specifically to this deeply vulnerable spot. It's an act of calculated comfort, a strategic balm applied directly to their deepest wound.
That's right. The process is all about making them feel complete, but with you, and maybe only with you. Once you touch that specific emotional nerve and offer that targeted relief, the source warns, their heart opens like a vault.
Completely vulnerable.
Completely. And the ultimate outcome is described as a state where they won't know why they need you. They just will. It moves beyond mere desire, past infatuation, into something far, far more binding. A fundamental psychological reliance.
Yeah.
You haven't just charmed them. You've made yourself seem absolutely essential to their emotional stability, their sense of well-being.
And this is where it flips, doesn't it? From want, however intense, to absolute need. Seduction in this framework is now complete, and it leads to that undeniable dependence we talked about.
Right.
The source refers to this as the final phase, and it issues perhaps its most potent warning of all right here. This is the point of no return.
No going back.
The one you seduce this way will never forget you. Even if you leave, you'll haunt their emotional memory like a ghost they can't exorcise.
That's chilling. Haunting their emotional memory.
It really emphasizes the lasting, potentially devastating impact on the seduced individual. It circles right back to that initial warning we started with, doesn't it? About how understanding seduction also reveals how people are not just influenced, but can be psychologically fundamentally destroyed, left profoundly scarred, often without even realizing the true nature of the chains that bind them.
So after digging into all of this dangerous art of psychological seduction, what does it all mean for us, for you, listening?
Okay.
This deep dive, I think, has laid bare some truly unsettling but, well, crucial takeaways.
Yeah, what's the summary?
It reminds us that at their core, people aren't purely logical beings. Far from it. We're often emotional machines, driven by deep-seated needs, repeating those emotional patterns like clockwork.
Predictable in our vulnerabilities.
Exactly. And quite ironically, the ones who seem the most confident on the outside are often, beneath the surface, the most fragile inside. That's a key insight here.
And the seducer's approach.
The seductive strategist, as this document outlines them, doesn't use brute force, doesn't rely on overt persuasion. They use emotional intelligence as a scalpel. Cutting past the surface, straight into the heart of vulnerability, you're not chasing them, you're becoming their reflection, their relief, their obsession. It's a calculated and profoundly dangerous transformation.
A constructed reality.
Yeah. But remember, the source leaves us with one final stark warning, something to really hold on to. Everything you gain through seduction can be lost to resentment. That manipulation might eventually breed its own destruction.
And that leaves us with a really heavy question, for all of us. Given the profound and, let's face it, potentially destructive impact detailed in these laws, how do we responsibly navigate a world where such psychological tools exist, whether they're wielded consciously, like in this document, or sometimes unconsciously?
How do we handle this knowledge?
Exactly. The source's ultimate warning is chillingly clear, and it serves, I think, as a powerful concluding thought for you to mull over. Use it wisely, use it rarely, and never forget when you pull people into your world, they may not leave it the same.
Wow.
Sometimes they don't leave at all.
Leaves you thinking.
It really does. It encourages, I hope, a deep critical thinking about the power dynamics inherent in all human interaction and the immense responsibility that comes with gaining such profound knowledge of human nature. It's not light stuff.